brand new Fox News poll shows Donald Trump leading the GOP primary race nationally. He's at 45%, followed by Ted Cruz at 27%, and John Kasich not far behind at 25%. The not-so-good news for Trump is that voters find him the least likable candidate on either side of the aisle. 57% of registered voters say he is not likable enough to be president. Instead, the favorite of the moment is Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Let's talk about it with Douglas Smith, Managing Director at Kent Strategies and a Democratic commentator. Alexander Smith is the president of the College Republican National Committee. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so the flip side of this national Trump poll, and again, we all know at this point it's state by state that matters in getting through these primaries and picking up delegates, is that when you combine those that are the two alternatives to Trump, I mean, you're then at 52% who aren't picking him. What does that do to the race?
You know, I think right now it leaves it in flux, and I think that we've always thought that this might go to a contested convention. Certainly after Wisconsin, it looks that much more likely. You know, we have some important contests coming up in New York. We'll see how well Donald Trump does there. If he can get above 50%, you know, he has a great chance of taking home all of the delegates, which I think would really put future contests into greater importance for Ted Cruz to win more delegates in those. But, you know, I think right now we're just starting to see that that Republican voters have not quite made up their minds, and it's going to make the delegate selection process all that more important.
And to the likability question, he is at the bottom of the list there, Doug. But at the top of the list, we mentioned Bernie Sanders. We've seen the crowds, the electrified young people, a lot. He's been concentrated there. They're showing up for him. But, okay, so we have Sanders at the top of the list, and you drop about 20 points. You have Cruz and Clinton tied, and then there's another drop-off to Trump. Can Bernie Sanders, though, capitalize on that? I mean, he's been winning. But the delegate math right now doesn't add up for him.
Well, what he's been winning has been caucuses. He really hasn't been winning elections. And I think he is going to run into a serious buzzsaw in New York on Tuesday. And he had a rough night Thursday night on the debate. You know, a lot of what people are starting to see is he is great at one-liners, phenomenal. But when you go an issue deep, he can't answer it. You know, it's some of the same problems that Donald Trump is facing. He says big, lofty things, but when you dig down a little bit, all of a sudden the facts fall apart. So I think when it comes down to it, you know, we're going to see the Republicans battle it out. And look, as a Democrat, I am ecstatic for a contested convention in Cleveland. My clients are horrified, but as someone who loves politics, it will be hilarious. It will be really, really fun to watch. But what it will come down to in the end is once we get into October, September, October, and people really start to focus on who is ready on day one, that's what's going to really count. But until then, I mean, look, this is the Super Bowl times 10 of politics. I don't think anybody saw this coming this crazy.
If they do, they need to start buying lottery tickets. I mean, let's face it. I think the conventions could be very interesting this year. All right, I want to look at some head-to-head polls. When you look at party to party, when you have head-to-head against Hillary Clinton, Kasich is the only one who beats her. Cruz and Trump both fall behind second and third to her. And when you look at head-to-head with Sanders, he beats all of the Republican nominees, but still Kasich is at the top of that list. So, Alex, he keeps making the argument, because people are saying, why are you staying in? You have no delegates. There's no way you can get there. But his argument has always been, I match up best to best in these head-to-head general election matchups.
Well, of course, with the important caveat that these are early polls, and of course in a general election context it will look a lot different. I think what's different about John Kasich's campaign is that he seems to have a very hopeful and optimistic message. And I think that in any primary contest, any person is going to have to run to their polar opposites, or sorry, to their polar extremes in any one party to be able to appeal to a lot of the primary voters in that particular party. And I think that we see that a lot with Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, that they really know how to play to that base. I think where John Kasich is unique is that he also knows that while Americans are frustrated with the way that Washington has been not so much working, and also the way that things have been going, that this is fundamentally still a great country that's capable of many things. And I think that his message speaks to that, which is why he's gaining traction against some of the other Democratic candidates. But as I said, it's early, and of course, I think that once we do have a Republican nominee, we'll be able to make that case on, you know, his behalf whenever that happens.
Okay, Doug, I want to make sure we get to the last poll with you, because we had likability. This one is about integrity. And again, Bernie Sanders is at the top of the list, and we know he talks a lot about corruption and money in politics. That seems to win him a lot of points. He's followed by Cruz, as seen as the second most, has the integrity to serve as president. Then followed by Clinton. Then followed by Clinton, who has had a lot of things to answer for and may not be done. and then Trump at the bottom there. So he's at the bottom of likability and integrity. He continues, though, to turn out thousands of people, and it'll be a bloodbath for him in New York on Tuesday.
Yeah, I just think, primary voters are very different than general election voters. I think what will be fascinating to see in New York is both winner take all, if you're 50.01%, but it's also congressional district by congressional district. And what I'm really looking for on the Trump thing, just out of fascination, is can he win every single congressional district in the state of New York? And that will be truly interesting. I think the challenge is where Senator Clinton has challenges against Senator Sanders is, Senator Sanders, he's put 3 bills forward in 30 years in Congress. There's very little there. Whereas Senator Clinton, Secretary Clinton has been in the limelight for so many years. Whether it's Fox, CNN, you pick a network, everyone has been digging into her for 30 years. So the good news for her is I don't really believe there is anything out there. Everyone is seeing what is out there. But if you keep just scratching, after a while, people begin to think. I think the challenge for Mr. Trump is that people are really now starting to pay attention, and they're starting to get really scared. He can't answer the simplest of questions on foreign policy. I heard him asked about a gentleman in Pennsylvania, Fethullah Gulen, who's wanted in Turkey. He couldn't even answer it. A terrifying guy living in his backyard, and he couldn't answer the question.
Well, and you mentioned Pennsylvania. That's another big one coming up.